Hey everybody, thanks for coming back this week. We're gonna get started now. Just to recap for everybody, so this is our last webinar in a series of them that we've been doing about setting up a marketing plan and how you can use the Feature.fm platform to help you execute on certain initiatives and sort of just setting yourself up right. We've covered everything from setting up the plan and your pre-saves, action pages, and then today we'll delve into sort of what you can do post-release with the specific add-on of covering stuff that you can do with merch. That seems to be a topic that I don't really see a lot of people cover, so we can do that today. And yeah, we'll just sort of start with just summarizing the stuff that we've done. So for this example in particular, we sort of wanted to make it as easy as possible. So it'll be an artist that is self-distributing through a distribution company like an AWOL or TuneCore. Um, Worldwide, they own all the rights, and it's a single. So starting from the very beginning of this webinar, we had spoken about sort of the time frames that you want to have ideally in a perfect world, which sometimes doesn't exist. You want to have at least 30 days between when you create a pre-save and announce a release and when the release is scheduled to come out. Sometimes you won't have that time frame to work in. Sometimes it'll be 2 weeks or even a day. I like to advise people to at least give yourself a fighting chance and try to make anything that you're scheduling at least 30 days out. If you can do it even longer than that, it's even better. If you have like a release like an album or an EP and you have a few instant grats that you're dropping from the top to the release date, it's even better if you have like 90 or 180 days. So yeah, so for post-release marketing, it's some of it's simple and some of it's sort of stuff that you can replicate on every release, and some of it is stuff that you might have already thought of or be currently having as part of your strategy. So the first thing that I want to mention is at the very start of a marketing plan, I always like to put together sort of the list of assets that I have for a release. So at the very beginning of this webinar series, we talked about audio liners that you can add to platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. I'm sorry, Apple Music you can't add a liner to, but you can for Spotify, Pandora, Amazon. You can also add liners to YouTube as well if you structure them correctly on your channel. But what I like to do is make pre-release liners and post-release liners. So rather than my track is coming out on June 10th, listen to it now, you would adjust those liners and your list of assets to have post-release assets. So what that would look like is you would replicate most of all of the content needs here for after the release. So if you were going to make a list, I like to always list it out because I like to keep things structured. So for post-release needs, we'll start with just a basic content breakdown. So for that, we'll need social skins that reflect that the release is out now. So post-release skins, social skins with updated verbiage. As much as you can, I like to say for Facebook, use a video banner. That is like the moving image that you can use. For other aspects of it, you want to make audio liners from the band or the artist that say, hey, thank you for checking out my new single, That's Hot. I really appreciate it. Check out the rest of my music, on Pandora or Spotify or wherever you plan on running ads or adding audio liners. Audio liners reflecting the release being out. And I always like to say thank fans or listeners. It just adds a personal touch to it that you want to have. For YouTube, so the thing with YouTube that a lot of folks don't take into account that I think post-release marketing should definitely do is making a playlist out of the music that you have up there. Generally, when you upload music to a distributor, they'll release what you call static videos, which is just generally the artwork and then the music playing over it. I always like to make playlists out of any content that I've released for during a release cycle, like music videos, tour diaries, updates, live streams, anything that you've done where you've archived the content on YouTube. Replicate that so it's a playlist, and then you can just have one destination where you point people to. Another really great idea that I've seen only really a few artists do is recording like videos of themselves talking about like the meanings of the tracks. So you're almost making a track by track of the new album, accompanied by the static videos or music videos that you've done for singles. If anybody would be ambitious enough to actually create music videos or lyric videos for every single song on their album, and then do like a 30-second intro at the top of that as a separate video where you just have everything living in a playlist where it's like, hey, this is my new track, that's hot. You know, I made it during a rough time in my life, blah, blah, blah. And then right after that, you had it play the music video for that single. Let me know. I'm definitely interested in figuring out how to market that, but that's a content idea that I had. So for YouTube, I would have video liners of your new music, it's like behind the scenes stories. Fans always love that. It also gives you more content to market. If you have an advertising budget, you can do TrueView ads directing to that playlist rather than just a music video. I'm a big advocate for directing people to playlists and not just one-off assets. Another post-release need that you'll have that we already set up was post-save links. So now that your release is already out, you don't want to use the pre-save links that we set up originally. You want to make sure that every link on your artist's socials, so Facebook page, Twitter page, SoundCloud, YouTube, everywhere that you can put a link, make sure that it doesn't have the pre-save tag on it anymore. Make sure it has the post-save tag so that we can track those after the release. We'll be able to sort of benchmark that. I think I'm going to do a future webinar on sort of analytics and how to break down those and sort of use those to do some better marketing. But yeah, so you want to use these, make sure these are updated. So I would say for post-release needs, update all social links, update all social media profiles with links using post-save tags. Actually, post-save activities tracking. And then really the big thing with your post-release marketing, besides just the basic boilerplate stuff that we went over in this list, so updating the social skins with the verbiage, audio liners reflecting the release being out and thanking fans for listening, YouTube video liners of your new music, behind the scenes stories, and making a playlist of the music content for that release. And then updating all your social profiles using the post-save activities tracking. One other thing that I would add is updating the making of playlist that we went over at the beginning. So that's an asset that you can use post-release to drive awareness to the new track. So what that is making a playlist on Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, Apple, and putting the like playlist that inspired you to make that track or that song or whatever you were listening to. We went over this at the very beginning of this campaign. Using that making of playlist, adding the most recent single or the entire release to the very top of it, or interspersed in the playlist, however you want to sort it. And then sharing that a few days after the release comes out, rather than just being like, you know, keep saying, oh, my release is out now, or uploading music videos for the track. It could really be something that's sort of like a personalized touch to the fans. It's like, hey, I put together this playlist of songs that inspired the making of this single or this record, and I really hope you enjoy. And making just like a quick video on an iPhone, or even posting it as a story on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube story, I think could really sort of add a personal touch. So updating the making of playlist and pushing it live. You should be replicating any of the playlists that we talk about making on, I'll list them here, but you want to put them up on YouTube. Even if you're using music videos to make the playlist, just add it. Believe me, like, it's stuff that you can control. You can add descriptions to the playlist linking to like the new release or any other things that you're releasing. You would just use the post-save YouTube URL. So you want to put the playlist up, like you want to actually replicate the playlist content on YouTube, Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music. So once you have all of this stuff done, you've pretty much covered sort of the cleanup, post save or post release stuff that you should be updating. When it comes to the actual social plan, I was going to mark that out with you guys so you can sort of see what I would do for that release and then how we can incorporate using your feature.fm account in that. A lot of people sort of do the like release day post where it's like, my new single That's Hot is out now, is available now, out now. Listen now, that's a lot of nows, but what that would look like is you just take that and post it. Generally, I'd say don't post it with just the artwork. If you have a video clip where you could get a personalized message from the artist, I suggest using that. But that would be sort of the copy that you'd put on release day. You would then pin those posts on Facebook and Twitter, on Tumblr as well. YouTube, I would make a YouTube community post with this copy and then a link to the video if it's a single, because it'll have a music video or a static track out. And then on Instagram, I do a story there. I do a story on Facebook. I do a story on YouTube. And then for Instagram, I would make a highlight and post the single there with artwork and make sure that the copy of the highlight is like reflected to get fans to click on there, and then do an in-stream post as well. TikTok is sort of another monster that you would tackle if you use it. I would suggest not doing any TikTok campaigns if you're gonna make that a part of your release until after the song is already out, because you want to use it to push streams, and generally the biggest streaming day for your release will be the day that it comes out or a few days afterwards. So that would be my suggestion with that. I think another topic that we'll cover in a future webinar is TikTok and sort of all the different things you can do there. But so this is what my post-release calendar would look like. I like to plan 7 days after the release. Anything after that, you would probably want to include like a more in-depth marketing plan. But for this, I like to do like the making. I normally like to fill in like what I would post for that day and then adjust copy for it. So I would do if this is Friday, I would do Monday, I would repost my inspiration playlists. So like inspiration, making of playlist. And we made that link on Feature FM earlier in another webinar. So we'll use this link that we've already created and we'll put that here. Listen to the tracks that inspired me on my Spotify. This is particularly linking to Spotify, but you can have it be a link for any landing page for the playlist that you create. I'd suggest doing Spotify or whatever streaming platform is biggest for your artist. And also make sure that you're tagging the DSPs. And then for other post-release stuff, if you've released a record and it has like 3 or 4 tracks, or if you're releasing or an EP, or if you're releasing an actual album, I like to do like track by track posts, but as social posts. So rather than it just being like an audio thing, you could have the artist record a track by track video liner and then transcribe the video liner to be individual social posts after the release, deep linking to that track on every single DSP. So what that would look like is, let's say that we have like, we'll do like, because we just did a single for this release, so we'll do That's Hot track by track. If you did an album or an EP, you can replicate this for every model. But what that would look like is I would put it in my social calendar and then say like, this track, and the artist would be saying this, not me. This track was made during a really hard time in my life, and it really helped me. I think the one. So something like that. And then what I would do is I would actually find the track on Spotify and we can walk through Spotify and what that looks like. So what I would do is I would actually grab the track off of my artist page just for that single. Again, we're not linking to the entire release, we're just linking to a single. So we'll grab the single. And if it's not a single and you did an album, then we can always create this for every single track. But this is sort of my take on what you can do post release. So what I would do is I would create a smart link. And then I would scan it. And what we're doing is we're going to create one for every single on the record and follow this process. But because we're just releasing a single, we're just going to create one. What you'll do is you'll then, go to the next page. You can customize all this, but I would make sure that like when you do the title that you put in here, just something that personalizes it. On the making of my new single. Just so it personalizes it and it shows the fan that it's just for that one link. I would also edit the default display order to not have any physical purchasers. I would just keep it to all of the main DSPs, making sure that you have like Tidal and other ones in here as well. And then I would also enable timeout redirection to Spotify. And then you can also edit any of these if you want to. But I would sort of just walk through this, make sure that everything looks great. Display your social icons, social cards, make sure those are updated. And then also make sure that your pixels are in here if that's something that you want. And then I would make sure that this title right here has the URL code at the end of the single if possible. And then what I do is just save it. And so what we could do now is like when you're directing people using the track by track example, they're going directly to the single. You're able to pixel them. You're able to then be able to retarget if they click on it. And it sort of just adds a more personalized experience for the fan. I would just also add listen now. For the asset for this, I would put like a photo, the single artwork, or if it's an album, I would use the album artwork and then somehow try to have the single name on the artwork. You can then replicate this across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. For Instagram, I'd post this probably as a story because then you can have the listen now link, have them swipe up for that. And then on Instagram, if it's like a single, I would put the track by track as a highlight story. So yeah, that's sort of what I would do for the track by track. Another part of this is like filling in these 7 days so you're constantly linking to streaming services or encouraging fans to stream things. So for the 12th, I would do like an in case you missed it, which in theory seems somewhat redundant if they follow you on social media. But it's Sunday, so I would probably leave like any heavy hitting posts for the week. In case you missed it, my new single, That's Hot, is out now. Let me know what you think in the comments. I always like to prompt people to comment on things. If you feel comfortable doing that, if it's on brand for your artist is probably a more important thing. So I would do my in case you missed it post. And then for these days, one thing that generally happens a lot with releases nowadays, especially during COVID, is you'll be doing a live stream for this. So I would actually not have the live stream on the day of release. I would save it as like an asset for later on. On the day of release, I would advise doing like an Instagram Q&A or a Facebook Q&A, or even hopping onto YouTube and doing a Q&A. A lot of folks are going to like Twitch and other platforms, which might have value, but those three main ones are generally the biggest audiences for people. So I would try to do some type of like Instagram chat or Facebook chat or YouTube chat with fans and just sort of check in and like talk about the new release, talk about what you have coming up, that kind of thing. And then I would actually save the performance of the new track, and I would probably do that midweek. So I'd probably for this calendar schedule it here and do a live performance on Instagram. One thing to make sure of as well is make sure that like the songs that you're distributing through your distributors are actually going to be available the day of release. A lot of times I've seen sometimes distributors won't upload to TikTok or to Instagram immediately, so you don't have like the stickers available. Those are definitely something that I would advise making sure of double checking with the distributor. Also, if you're open to doing like Instagram filters or any type of filter, those are great assets to have, and those they're not too expensive, but I would try to include that as part of your release. Also, putting up like a snap filter for release day if you're active on that platform as well. Those types of things can go viral if they're really cool ideas or really integrated into the meaning of the song or like what is happening in the world at that time. Also, if you have just like a really great sense of humor, trying to translate that into a filter and making people use it is really great. One really cool example that somebody did that wasn't really in particular to an album, but was creative, was a designer made albums into receipts and followed that like template. And it went viral and had like a bunch of different people like replicating that like on the artist side, where they would actually take an album and then make it into a receipt with like the time codes instead of the prices of items, which was really interesting. But yeah, any types of filters you can do. If you work with a bigger artist, I always like to advocate doing like listening experiences on domains that you own. So like prompting people with like Spotify or Apple logins or Deezer logins, and then creating some type of listening experience or some type of social experiment around that is great. Personally, I love building that kind of thing. So if anybody has any ideas, like feel free to reach out. I love building out those types of things. But back to this. So for the live performance on IG, I would perform the song like acoustically or live if you can. I mean, depending on what type of genre you are or how you're set up. If it's like an electronic artist, I would try to do like a DJ set that day, including your new track. Just things like that are great. So I would just put in here like going live, and please excuse the copy. I'm just trying to come up with something right now. Going live at 12 p.m. today. Let's party. Great. So for this, you can go back in here. I like to create dedicated links for this type of thing. So I would do a standard landing page. It depends on what platform you're going live. So for this, I think I just deleted it. But for this, let's say we're going to go live. I think that we can. We'll say that we're going live on Instagram. So we'll put that URL in here. And then for this, we can just put in really anything, because we're not gonna use it, and it's gonna rescan it. So that's gonna make me delete everything. Apologies, I should have put that in first. But essentially, we'll just delete all these, add Instagram, and then what we'll do is we'll make sure that it goes directly to Instagram, where you'll have like the live. And then this way, you're able to use this. You're able to use this for your live stream. So what we'll do is we'll just click next. IG Shake Live. And then I would create like a graphic for it and upload it rather than having the artwork from the single. Here, it'll go directly to Instagram when we create it. And then for idle timeout redirection, we can just send it to Instagram in case somebody clicks on it and doesn't go there. Again, just making sure that the email collection is turned on. No reason not to be collecting emails. making sure that the copy edited so that it shows what event you have going on. Social cards, make sure those are updated, especially if you have artwork for the IG Live, and then making sure that like you have the pixels in here as well. Clicking save. And then what we'll do is we'll put that link into the marketing plan. And then we have our release, our thing set up perfectly for the Instagram Live. Now, one thing that a lot of folks have been asking me about, besides advertising, which we'll get to in a second, is merch and sort of what you can do with merch, you know, when a release comes out or post-release. So for me, generally when you announce a release is sort of when you would announce like pre-order bundles or things like that. Depending on like, you know, if this was like 6 months ago, if you were touring, or if you wanted to add like album downloads and things like that as part of like the pre-save or the pre-order process. What you can do post-release, I always like to like suggest like specific like merch items, even if it's just a t-shirt or just like not even an experience, but just like an opportunity to get like something personalized from the artist. Depending on the genre of music and sort of what the artist is comfortable with, I always like to say like just drop like a t-shirt or something like that that's like unique to the release, you know, after it's come out, to sort of keep pushing not only merch sales, but like you could somehow incorporate streaming into that, or even album downloads as part of the bundle. If you release your release your merch yourself, or if you have a merch distributor that you use, depending on sort of where you're at with merch in the process. But I would release some type of exclusive merch item post-release, because A, there's no reason not to, and B, it's just extra money in your pocket, and it also offers the fans something that's not just like the album artwork reprinted onto a t-shirt. One cool thing I saw was an artist went live on Instagram, drew out like a really cool illustration. It wasn't even like an artist, it was just them like doodling on like a piece of paper, and then said that they were going to release that as a shirt. And they turned it around super quickly through a Shopify site where they just directed people to, and like they had they had like a limited amount of t-shirts that they were going to do. They said they were only going to do 1,000. And you know, within an hour of that Instagram live, and even when it was there, like as soon as they drew it, they had somebody on their team upload it and then put a link in their Instagram on the bio for people to buy it, and it's sold out in minutes. That kind of thing is really great to do if you have the bandwidth and the team to do that, or the following. But one workaround for that, I think, is you know, generally if you have fans and they're listening to your music, you want to somehow convert them into a purchase. We do have the retargeting available on the platform, where you can retarget people by their clicks to service. You can also retarget people through a parameter on there for people that click on merch, if you add merch as a store in your landing page. But for this, and because we've already released the track, I want to create an action page that solely goes to an exclusive merch item that has like a limited edition element to it. So for that, we would want to go back to our platform and we'd create an action page. So for this, we'll create an action page on every platform that we have available. So because the release is already out, and I'm trying to encourage people to save to their libraries, that would be my metric to use post-release rather than stream. I would click save and go through all of these and make sure that people are saving my playlist. So we can just pick a playlist on my end. And what we'll do is we'll put that in here. And then thanks for saving my discography playlist. Here's an exclusive merch item with only 50 available. And then for the post destination URL unlock, I would just put my merch store. More specifically, I would put the merch store with the link to the specific item. And And I would put the follow artist and collect fan email address, making sure those are all selected. Add action. I would also add on here Apple, so add playlist to library, YouTube, subscribe, and then put my YouTube channel in there and click that. And then for here, I would upload a photo of the merch item and put that here. I would also put on here limited t-shirt or something that would be specific to the item that you're trying to sell for merch. For the title, I would say limited edition U2 t-shirt. Preview URL, you can put in a URL if you don't want to use the artwork. And then for description, I drew a stick figure. And now it's being printed. And now it's on a t-shirt. And then for action buttons, I would edit this and just say, save, or just edit the copy. Save to unlock t-shirt. And then you can list out the name of the DSP if that's something that you want to do, making sure that you have the social icons checked if you want those. Social cards, just make sure that the artwork reflects the item that you're trying to sell. And then for advanced settings, making sure that you have the Facebook and Google pixels in there, and any other information that you need. And then what I would do is I would just then put that into my release plan and use that. Now, the one thing about merch that I'll say is that if you have added the merch store to the landing page from the beginning of the pre-save cycle, so when you set up your pre-save initially, you can add a merch store link. There's a store option in the drop-down menu where you can click add store and it'll add it to the link. If you have that in there, you're able to then keep track of people clicking on that button and then retarget them post-release for that merch store. So anything that we're doing here where you're doing a limited t-shirt unlock campaign, you could also then use that money. You could also then use a little bit of budget to reach the fans and retarget them for anybody that clicked on the merch link before. Chances are that if they bought a physical t-shirt or album or vinyl or anything, they probably might be interested in buying this limited edition t-shirt. That's one thing that I would do with merch. Also on Spotify, Merch Bar powers the 3 different merch options here. Just make sure that you have these 3 options set up as well. Anytime anybody's listening to you on Spotify, they see the merch if they go to your artist page. So just make sure that these are all set up correctly, and make sure that you have 3 items on here that you want. If you are doing merch through any third-party companies, chances are they are probably distributing those merch items to Merch Bar. You can only feature 3 at most, but you can also email Merch Bar. They have it on their contact page if you aren't distributed through a third-party merch company like Red Star or anything like that. And just make sure that you have stuff listed. I would try to make it t-shirts or vinyl if possible. CDs or cassettes or anything like that, I haven't really had a lot of success in moving, but vinyl for the most recent release, and then 2 t-shirts that don't have the album artwork on it are generally a good tip for that. And you always want to make sure with Merch Bar, because they take 4 to 6 weeks to reply to one email, that you start that as soon as you can in the process. So back to this. So we've covered doing a merch post, how you can use a live performance on Instagram to sort of keep everybody, interested. You could also do merch drops on Instagram in the exact way that I described, where you draw something, or you just hop onto Instagram and you're wearing a t-shirt and you're this is only available for today. We've also done the in case you missed it post, the making of post. So the track by track post idea that we went over is right here. I would do that if it's a single the next day. If it's an EP or album, I would save it for additional social posts the next week. And then really the other types of stuff that I would do, if TikTok is a part of your campaign, I would want to do that within the first week of posts. If it's not, you can just not put this in your release strategy, but for TikTok, I would try to have some type of like presence on there already where you're verified, where your song is up there, making sure it's available, making sure that the clip of the song that you're using is 30 seconds or less. Sometimes people will distribute like an entire minute of a song up there. I would suggest 15 to 30 seconds for that one single. And making sure that like if you're doing a challenge or some type of campaign, that like the content is good and you're doing it as part of the challenge to sort of show what it looks like. That's something that I would suggest doing. Influencers and things like that are an entirely different webinar for a different time, but for TikTok, I would just make sure that like anything that you're posting is conducive to A, it fitting the platform, B, you not looking like a complete idiot, and making sure that it's on point for your song, and C, just making sure that it's fun and like people will want to watch it. So for this, you can just go on to here. If you have the song on TikTok and you want to create a link, you could just not create an action page. You would actually create a smart link for that. And you would use a store called Use My Sound. So on TikTok, you have the ability to click on a little button that says Use Sound. So what I would do is I would scan a link. Let's get a link and scan it. And then for TikTok, I just keep it, I like direct links for platforms, but you're trying to do something that's specific to just one. So for this, I'd click Use My Sound, or sorry, TikTok. And then I would just put in the Use My Sound URL. Generally, you can Google that. That's the quickest way, or you can just grab it off the artist page. So for me, I can pull together an example. There are easier ways of grabbing it and for them to show up. So you just grab it and paste it in there. That will not, it's probably not going to work because URL they like to add. And then what you would do is you just then click on next, making sure that like this has the name of the track and TikTok. Editing the artwork, editing the title and description to reflect the campaign that you're running, making sure that like that's the only store showing, enable timeout redirection to the store, making sure that the emails are turned on, social icons are turned on if you want them to be, social cards, making sure that this is updated and so is this for the platform, making sure that you have your pixels in there if that's something that you want to be using, and then just clicking save. And then taking that link from Feature.fm and putting it into the plan so that on release day, you don't have to, or on the day that you want to release this, you don't have to come back to it. So for that, we just come back here and say like, hey, follow my adventures on TikTok. Again, if you have a specific challenge, I would just make it more specific to that. And then for the last day post-release that you can do, I would actually send a note from the artist via an email blast. That I know that on release day, a lot of people send out email blasts with like, hey, my new single's out now and all that stuff. And I would never advise against that if that's the strategy that you have. But generally a week later, sort of you've been keeping the song top of mind for people. You know, you've been posting about it. You've been doing a live performance on Instagram. You've done an exclusive merch post. On the 17th, I'd just send a personalized email blast. And just like I would just say like, thank you to the fans for listening, mentioning the merch item if you haven't already, and using that link that we had in there to sell it along with like a photo of the merch. And then really just like anything that you want it to be. I always like to add something exclusive to it. So even if you just have the artist like handwrite a note, or it's like an exclusive video thank you from them, just something that's personalized. If it's a video thing, you can just upload it to YouTube as an unlisted video so it doesn't show up on your main channel. But yeah, so those post-release, I would sort of use that, and then making sure that obviously any links or anything that you're updating or posting have the post-save activities tracking, so you can track that. For advertising, because I get that question a lot. For the ad spend that we were discussing originally in this, our goal was to drive awareness on Spotify. So rather than promoting the pre-save for that, once the release is out, I would put in here, and I would set up the ad before the release came out, obviously, because you can get the Spotify URL from your distributor before then. I would look at the targeting for the ad. I would look at the people that have clicked on the pre-save and just sort of take a look at that, because you could retarget those people based off of the music service they clicked on. And also sort of just see like where your fans are coming from and where they're going, which is a huge asset. So for targeting, if it's this type of artist, obviously I would do like 13 to 45-year-old. I would look at the countries where your fans are popular, where your fans are coming from. So on Facebook, Instagram, and really any service nowadays, you can take a look at those. Twitter, you can look at Twitter analytics. YouTube, you can do the same thing. I would look at interest-based activities, basic demographic breakdowns. I would look and see if there's any sort of like affinity tool that you can use for your release to see like if you could build out a lookalike audience based off of other people that the person might be interested, like the fan might be interested in. On YouTube, you can target specific channels with TrueView ads. So I would just look at like if your artist has playlisting from Spotify editorials, sort of other contemporary artists that would fit them based off of genre or like activity in that playlist. I would look at location, demographic, household income, that kind of thing. So that on YouTube, you can break it down that granular. And then really for the ad budget, I would really just spend that, however much you have and really the platforms that your artist is popular on. The only platform that I don't like to advertise on is Twitter, because it's just a dumpster fire of a platform for music in particular. And I've never really had any great success on there. So I think that's pretty much it for the post-release strategy. I can answer, looks like we have a lot of questions, so I can answer those. Looks like Blaze asked, what marketing techniques are you using post-release? I just sort of went over that, so that should cover that. Alex asked, are participants able to record this session? Every single one of these is recorded and we do a recap webinar, so you'll get that either tomorrow or Monday. Blaze asks, how much of your total budget is dedicated to running ads, and what ad platforms are you putting the most into? I don't know what you mean by total budget. If I was going to be running something, I'd have a separate marketing budget, and the ad platforms are completely subjective and open to interpretation based off of what type of music they're releasing, how many releases do they have, is it a single, is it going to be worldwide, do you have rights worldwide? Like there's so many factors to that, it's kind of hard to answer. Sean asks, for DIY artists, what's the best way to get new supporters that keep coming back for me? Really putting effort into your strategy. A lot of people ask me questions about how they can get better playlisting or how they can get other things. Like, honestly, the best thing that you can do is learn everything you can about marketing and advertising and not being reliant on the gatekeepers of the music industry to make your career great. It's really easy to say that, I realize, on my end, but I mean, there are people that don't get playlisting that are bigger artists. And the reason they don't is because they don't really have any strategy behind it. They just think, okay, release a single and that's it. Like, I'll just get into New Music Friday. Like, that's not how it is. It depends on how active you are on the platform. It depends how many people are listening and saving your music to their library. It depends on the release examples that you have. Are you putting your money into things that matter rather than like vanity metrics like YouTube views? It's really such a complicated question to answer. And the real true answer is there are no shortcuts. If you want people to come back and keep coming back for you, you need to release consistent, great content. What that means to you is different than what it means to me and what it means to the people that you would want to be your fans. So you just have to sort of find that hook and really invest in that. And it doesn't need to be elaborately produced or elaborately created. It just needs to be genuine. One of the things that I love about Lil Nas is that he really just posts the most dumb memes ever, but like people love that because it's his sense of humor that he puts on those, even if they're ones that were already created by other people. So I hope that helps. One person asked where you can find the marketing plan example. That's always sent in the webinar recaps as well as the FAQ articles for each webinar on our website. The next person asked, do the distributors like CD Baby let you add an intro to each track on an album or images to go with each track for YouTube Music instead of having a static cover image to go through the entire track? That depends on the distributor. Generally, they don't allow you to add an intro to each track. You could technically upload intros as a separate album and then just add them to a playlist on Spotify or YouTube. I always advocate that if you're going to be creating static videos or album art track videos for YouTube, that you do it yourself and not let your distributor do it. Some people find it easier for them to do it, and then it just goes to your channel. It really just sort of depends. It really depends on sort of what the strategy is. If you want to be doing more intros and stuff like that to videos and things like that, I would suggest that if you want to add intros to songs on like Spotify or Pandora and things like that, and you don't want to use audio liners to do that, you just record them on your phone and then upload them to CD Baby as like another product. And then what it does is it'll be like right above the album release, and then you can just create a playlist for it. Hi, could you mention how to retarget pixel a user that clicked the smart links? That is actually covered in a webinar that we've already done called Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. If you email me, I'm happy to send that to you. If not, you can just go on our website and it's right on our FAQ. Maggie asks, can you speak to effective ad strategy for post-release? Most of the ad strategy that a lot of people do is just linking to like the song or the landing page. Effective ad strategy, I think, is again, it's not like a one for all answer. If you're talking retargeting and you've set up your pre-save correctly and you've been using that, that's probably the most effective way to do ads, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, I don't know, wherever you want to advertise. Really the thing is to like, if you want to, you really have to have sort of a goal in mind. So if it's to get more streams, I would suggest picking one service and directing it directly there. If it's to get video views, I'd suggest doing a TrueView campaign on YouTube and putting all of your money there. It really depends on what the goal of it is. Next question is, for the track by track post for an EP, are you featuring a track a day? Yes, I would. I would do that after the weekend of the release. So I'd do that the following week. I'd suggest doing that. And also if you can, like and the demands on the artist really aren't a lot if that's a concern, because generally at the top of a campaign, you'll have like a list of content needs that you need. So I would just ask the artist to record that liner on their phone while they're doing other audio liners for like radio or other things like that. And then you can just transcribe it yourself. The merchandise post is really interesting. How does it work though? After I followed you creating the landing page and included the link, once someone has successfully saved the song, will I get notified so that I'll have the t-shirt delivered to them? You have to set up the t-shirt as a merch item on your website. So if you use Squarespace or Shopify, you can set it up yourself. If you go through a merch company, you can have them set it up. And then you would take that link directly to the item and put it as the post-save destination. We don't do any merch fulfillment. The second part of that question is also, is it possible for someone to access the link and claim to have saved the song while they didn't? No. But to answer that question, because I get it a lot from folks when they say that like songs don't show up in their libraries, a lot of time in my experience, it's people that haven't actually completed the pre-save process. They clicked the button, but they didn't say complete. So I would advise anybody that is watching this that's like a stakeholder and you want to communicate that to people, I would advise you to do that if that's a comment from them. Also, if they don't opt in to share their email, there's really no way for us to be able to tell you that they pre-saved. because of the GDPR compliance. Someone asked, how long do you think you can promote a track for before it officially being old news and it's time to stop promoting it? I say like 4 to 6 weeks. And that's why generally if you are releasing an album or an EP and you have instant grats rolled out, you'll do one a month leading up to the release. How do I get my targeting right with a first time up and coming artist? I don't have the demographics and the audience. There's always somebody that you can look at. In that case, I would suggest lookalike audiences for artists that sort of fit the genre or mood or vibe of that artist. That's what I would suggest doing. Will a link be sent out via email for the marketing plan? It already is sent out every time we send out one of these emails like we did yesterday. It's also up in every FAQ article that we've done from this series. What are good, easiest merch companies to use? That is a very subjective question. Email me about that, Dawn, if you want an answer for that. Could you quickly show the pre-release plan for us that didn't attend the webinar? That's already archived on the website in the FAQ. You can take a look there and all of those are up there. Do I have any insights on how to get into algorithmic Spotify playlists like Discover Weekly? Yes, I would watch the webinar that we did 2 weeks ago about playlists and pre-release strategy and how you can do that. I thought it's a great resource to have, be able to go back. All of those webinars are now archived on our FAQ, so you can watch those, and that is covered in there and is a very important part of the pre-save release strategy. And I go over an example of how you should incorporate that into it. It looks like those are all the questions. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming to this series. I'm hoping that we'll do another one next month and keep doing these. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And if you need anything, if you want to see a recap of this or any of them, the previous ones are up on the FAQ, and the ones the one from today will be up tomorrow or Monday, and we'll send out a recap video to everybody. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope everybody has a great day.